All right, let me bring you in real quick. Oh man, what the heck's going on here? There's Purdeep.
Are we
And
live on YouTube?
we are live on YouTube and we are recording. This is Male Entrepreneur Podcast, episode number 177. And we are live in 3, 2, bring this over real quick. All right, welcome back to the Male Entrepreneur Podcast with your host, the male entrepreneur himself, Purdeep Sangha. Purdeep, how you doing, man?
Hey, what's up, Nathan? It's been a while. It's been a long time since we recorded this podcast, so I'm looking forward to it. Actually, I missed you quite a bit.
I missed you too, and it has been a minute. And you have we've talked about it before on the podcast. You have family obligations clear on the other side, family and business obligations clear on the other side of the continent from where you stay at. So before we jump into it, what was that all about?
Yeah, that was the cherry harvest. So cherry harvest for us is in July, a little bit into August. Ours was actually done in July because we had this massive heat effect on the West Coast. I don't know if you heard about it, Nathan, but they called it the heat dome. It was just scorching heat that they've never seen before for a period of, I don't even know, like 6 weeks or something. And I think it rained twice or 3 times throughout the entire year so far where we live. And it's a desert anyways. So long story short, our crop was early. We were dealing with this whole heat mess, but it was a ton of fun. I took my kids out there. My wife was there. We kind of, how do I say, it's a different kind of a stress. It's physical stress more than mental stress. And the kids absolutely loved it. We got them 2 electric ATVs and they were just ripping around on that. I was a little bit worried about them at first because my kids are kind of city kids. So taking them out to the country and throwing them on ATVs was a little bit worrisome, but they picked up on it pretty quick. And it was just a blast overall. I'm so glad we went.
Nice. It sounds fun. It's good to do stuff like that as a family. I think even city kids, I was a city kid growing up and I hated the countryside and I hated the mountains and all of that stuff. And now that I'm older, I've found a new appreciation for that stuff.
Yeah, it's so nice. And plus, this is the first time that my kids got to see my nephew, so my brother's son,
Oh,
and they
nice.
they were building that bond because of COVID. We weren't able to travel, and so this was the first time, and it was so amazing seeing them bond. And my kids absolutely love and adore him. It's so cool.
Nice. And the last time your brother was on was right before he was about to have his kid, right?
Yeah, exactly. And funny enough, so my brother, I was out there in BC. My brother actually was there with his family, his wife and son. So we were together for 3 weeks. It was an awesome time. We've never done that for like it's been decades, right? Since we've been together like that, and it's been so nice. And he's actually here with me now. He came, him and his wife decided to come out with their young one and stay 10 days with us. So it's been a really nice family, you could say, vacation time.
Nice. Okay, so that's good. I think one of the major hardships over the last couple of years is not being able to see family the way that we wanted to. I'm glad you were
Mhm.
able to do that.
Yeah, it's been challenging, and I think when we talk about this, that's the topic of this conversation. Is I had this one experience before I left, and I thought that was really telling. And we you and I, especially Nathan, we have interesting perspectives. You could say sometimes we differ on opinion, or actually a lot of times we differ on opinion on certain topics. And here's what ended up happening. My wife and I were supposed to get our second COVID shot, and we had an appointment at a local pharmacy, and I was expecting it to be like packed door to, like with people lined up and have to wait like an hour or 2 hours because our vaccine system or rollout was a lot slower than yours in the US.
Hmm.
So we didn't get the amount of vaccines that we needed because I think our government cheaped out at the beginning. And what ended up happening was my wife and I went to this pharmacy and it was dead. And I was just like, this is so weird. This is the opposite of what I thought would be happening here. And so I was talking to the pharmacist. I said, well, what's going on today? And she said, you know what? Normally it's packed, like out the door. It is jam packed in here, people rushing in. But she's like, today's a Eurocup. And I found that very, very interesting because everybody was at home watching the Eurocup rather than actually getting their vaccines. So this isn't about whether you believe in the vaccine or not. This isn't about the whole COVID thing. This is about people's priorities. I found it very interesting that they selected to watch the Eurocup over getting their vaccine, because these people are going to get it anyways, right? They're scheduled to get it anyways, but they just didn't schedule it, or they didn't come in. They were having walk-ins. They didn't come in on Eurocup. They found the Eurocup to be more important. And that just showed me a lot. And it comes back to this principle that we do what is most important to us. So if someone says, well, that is important to me, it's not what they say you should be watching. It's actually what they do, because that's very telling.
So yes, we do disagree on certain things. I'm one of those people that's like, I'll wait a couple of years and wait for the long-term stuff before I'm willing to take any kind of medication, just because here in the States, it seems like a year or two after any medication is introduced down here, like there's quickly to follow a commercial. Did you or one of your family members take this particular medication? If so, jump on this class action lawsuit. So I'm a little bit skeptical about the profit motives of these companies. And I that's really what it comes down to for me, is just a little bit of skepticism on the people that are making the money off of this stuff. And it's pretty much across the board. But yeah, I agree with you. We've seen it manifest in other ways too, where people are saying, especially with our political leaders, oh, you have to do this, you have to mask up, you have to do social distancing. And then the same day that they get on stage and say that, they're photographed at a party and nobody's social distancing and nobody's wearing masks. And Barack Obama's birthday party was one of the things that was trending over the week. And so we see, I don't know, man. I think it's just part of human nature. A lot of times we just have hypocrisy, and we like to say one thing and then our priorities reveal themselves in our actions. It seems to be something that even the highest in society aren't immune from.
Yeah, well, I want to keep this conversation away from the political side, because we've talked about that a lot, and I think we've hammered that to death. And this really comes down to, what are your priorities and what are you doing? And this is a message for the people out there. If you want to see what's most important to you, just watch what you do throughout the day. Watch where you put your focus. Watch where you put your energy. It's very, very telling. And even when you see other people in your life, right? Some people may say, yeah, you know what, you're important to me, whether it's a marriage or children. Children are very, very in tune with this. They're very in tune with this because they watch what you do. And if you say, yes, my son catches me all the time. He says to me, what's more important, your work or us, your kids? And I said, obviously, you guys are my most important priority. But he's like, how come you're spending more time working then? And so it's very telling. And I think this is very important for an individual to look within themselves, and also to look at it, and not from a judgment perspective, but also to look around at the people that are in your circle. Because I'm not saying judge, I'm not saying shun, I'm not saying, call them out. I'm just saying be very observant, because you will see how people's activities and actions and daily routines, how much they can tell you about what's important to them, and whether you're important to them in some way, shape, or form, or what you're asking them to do. I found this very, very, very important, because there was a number of occurrences or situations when I went back home with friends and family members that I saw, and I hadn't seen them for a long time. And I was just watching what they do, and I just didn't see them mature in a lot of ways. They had the same level of priorities, whatever it was, whether it was drinking or partying or doing certain things. But they're like, yeah, no, this other thing is more important to me, or this is important to me. And I was like, well, your actions are just not showing it.
I tend to notice, and I even do this myself sometimes, where I say my priority is this. My priority is to get to this North Star position in life. But then I'm like, oh man, I took 8 steps to the east and 4 steps to the west, and I even took 2 steps south today, and I only took 1 step north. And I keep saying I want to get north, but only one of my steps actually put me in the direction of north. And I consider myself to be a pretty productive, pretty high achieving person. And even I constantly, my actions are contradictory to what I say my priorities are.
Yeah, it's really interesting that you say that. And I think all of us as humans are prone to that. I catch myself all the time. And I think this is where it's important. One simple action item that you can do and implement is do an hourly check-in, which is simply, and I've done this with myself enough now that I can actually do it based on habit. But this is one activity that I get guys to implement, is whether it's an alarm that goes off on their phone or their watch or whatever it is, a reminder on the daytimer, but to check in every hour to say, how am I feeling? Actually, that's one of the first things, because you want your emotional level to be where you want it to be. But secondly, am I doing what I should be doing that's in line with my daily goal, with my daily priorities? And if you can check in every hour, and then you'll get to a point where you're actually checking in more frequently, just automatically, you're going to be able to catch yourself. And I think that's important, because we all get distracted, right? This world is all about distractions. This world is all about competing for your attention and your awareness. And so it's easy to get off track. I find myself that happening all the time.
What you mentioned there, the kind of like stopping and stepping back from yourself and observing your actions, observing your thinking, observing kind of like a metacognition, of thinking about how you're thinking.
Mm-hmm.
That is a skill that I don't think many people are taught or have intrinsically. And it's kind of difficult. It's kind of difficult to get out of your own head and look at yourself objectively and kind of do that examination. So I'm wondering, I find it to be incredibly valuable to be able to do, but I'm wondering, for people who maybe have never even thought about thinking about their thinking, what I know that sounds so weird, but what are some tips on how to actually do that?
Yeah, and what what you just talked about there, Nathan, is mindfulness. That's simply what it is being mindful of where your thoughts are, where your emotions are at any given time. And the number one thing that the average person can do to really bring themselves into that state, to be able to think about your thinking, is to actually slow down in life, is to actually remove distractions and schedule some time out to think about your thinking. That's the one thing that differentiates us from every other animal to this point, based on our current knowledge of neuroscience and psychology, is the one thing that differentiates human beings from other beings, such as animals like lions, tigers, cats, dogs, is that we have the ability to think about our thinking. And that's what allows us to have this higher level of consciousness, apparently, right? But removing distractions, slowing down in life, truly looking at what you are doing. And this is something else that you can add in is, do you have to be doing that? Do you really have to be doing what you're doing at that particular time? Because a lot of times you don't. We think we do, but we don't necessarily have to. The other thing I would highly recommend is actually scheduling some time out to think about your thinking. Because we are at the point here that we do have to schedule that. Thousands of years ago, people were doing this as a regular thing, as part of their meditation practices, their mindfulness practices. But this is something that we have to schedule in our calendars today, to say, block off time for myself so I can think about how I'm thinking and think about how I'm feeling. And so those are two simple things that you can do, is A, slow down, and B, block time out for yourself.
So to go back to the very first thing that you were talking about in this whole conversation, a lot of times we get stuck on autopilot. We have these programs, these habits that we run. And I'm assuming a lot of people watching the Eurocup was just part of their autopilot. It was part of their programming. And going to get their vaccine was something that was kind of a break from the routine. It was something outside of what they've been programmed to do. So if something is important to you, but it's kind of a habit breaker, and it conflicts with something that's kind of a pre-programmed habit. Because I feel like for the people that were going to go get it, it probably was a priority for them, but they they ended up running into that conflict where this new thing that I should be doing is conflicting with the program that I'm used to doing. How do we break that? How do we make sure that we're breaking the programming and doing the things that we know that we should be doing?
Well, you just nailed it right there, because yes, most of us are on automaticity, and and it's been shown that 40%, 47% of our day on average has been shown to be run on autopilot. That's half our friggin' waking day,
Mm-hmm.
right? We just do what we normally do without even having to really think about it. And the conflict thing that you talked about, Nathan, is, I would say, the biggest challenge that people face is this conflict of priorities. And what ends up happening is that when you have a conflict, you typically go towards the thing that you are most comfortable with, not the thing that you are uncomfortable with. And I think that is what people need to be aware of. When you have conflict and you fall into your same routine, it's typically because it's not pushing you out of your comfort zone. It's making you feel comfortable. There's some level of safety or some level of security, some level of acceptance. Because if we take a look at this Eurocup experience, I can bet you anything, a lot of it was herd mentality, right? Or groupthink, we can call it. And not necessarily, I'm not saying it's a bad thing to watch Eurocup. People needed a break, right? This COVID thing's been killing society and killing our mental health. But it was just really interesting to see the behavior of people. But if a whole bunch of my family members are watching Eurocup, I'm going to be more suckered into watching the Eurocup than actually going for my vaccine, because most likely they'll be like, yeah, you know what, you can get it booked another day. Don't worry about it. You know what, you'll only live once, all this kind of stuff, which I agree with to a certain degree. But again, these are the things that influence our decisions. Someone said something to me. Oh, actually, so our team was working on a project, and we actually just finished one of them, which is on decision making. And when we first started this, one of our team members said, well, how much does social influence impact our decisions? And I started laughing. I'm like, that's part of this project. You're going to have to research that. And it was really interesting to see. And you know this, Nathan, because your background is in copywriting, and it's all about influence, right? And a lot of it's from social influence. We know that we have an internal influence, and we know that we have social influence, and both are very, very powerful. Sometimes a social influence is even more powerful than our internal influence. And so this social influence can also dictate and determine our priorities for us. So it goes back to what you were saying. Inside, I may want this as a priority, but I have this unconscious or even conscious feeling of conflict or whatever that might be, because I'm having these social pressures, right? That challenge me. And then again, I just fall into the same comfort zone, because no one, and I'm going to say this, not even me, likes to be, you can say, how do I say it? Pointed at, or, pulled out of the crowd to say, you did this. It is the most uncomfortable feeling that a person can feel. And me included, I don't like that. I don't like that, to be told that I did something wrong, or I'm not part of the group, or whatever it is. I'm used to it now. And sometimes I'm like, yeah, it's cool, but I still don't like it inside.
So there's a lot to kind of ponder on as we wrap this episode up. I want to get your take on, I guess the last thing that I would ask is, if people are in that situation where they find themselves continually doing what's comfortable and knowing that they need to step outside of their comfort zone to get to where they want to get to in their next step in life or business or their relationships, but they keep falling back to the comfortable and they know that it's holding them back. What would you say is one or two things that people could do to help get them outside their comfort zone and to moving in the direction that they know their priorities lie?
Well, I can give you a number of steps. The first thing is to have clarity, and that comes from taking time out for yourself. And I would say step number one would be actually take a few hours, or even take a couple of days. Some guys even go away for the weekend, uninterrupted, to a hotel or whatever it is, to actually think about what you want out of life and create a vision for yourself. It goes back to that old saying, a man without a vision shall perish. You need to have a vision for your life. Once you have that clarity and you remove the social influences, you'll be able to determine how to get out of your comfort zone. The second thing is you have to determine your identity. You have to determine what kind of man you want to be in life, what kind of values you want to have. So that's a second thing. What kind of man do you want to be, and what kind of man would you have to be to live out that vision? Then the third thing is you can determine your values. What kind of values do you want to live by? These are, I know they sound philosophical, but these philosophical things are what change our behavior and our thoughts and our emotions and our patterns. And so if you can outline that, because most men don't have that. Most men don't have that clarity. If you don't have the clarity, you won't have the confidence and that certainty that you need. And then ultimately that drives to the control. And I don't mean control of your external environment. I'm talking about control of your inner environment. So if I could just sum it up, Nathan, the first step is actually take some time out for yourself. Second step is during that period is to create a vision of the life that you want 10 years or 5 years down the road. And the third step is to determine what kind of man you need to be and what kind of values you need to live by to be able to have that life. And then that will actually give you some motivation. It will give you some drive to step out of your comfort zone.
Nice. And I think I just want to add to that before we're out of here. I think a lot of guys, a lot of people in general, they don't have that clear idea of where they want to be. They're just they're letting life kind of just push them in whichever direction life is pushing them, and they haven't set that clear understanding of where it is that they want to go.
Yeah, and actually just one more thing on that note, just to sum it up, or one important factor, is you have to be very careful of the environment that you are in or you come back to after that time taken away from yourself, because the environment will also create that pattern for you if you're not strong enough yourself. So if you're going back into the same old routine with the same old people doing the same old thing, or the people that you're around are telling you the same old thing, and they're telling you that you're doing things different and therefore you're a stranger, you're stupid, you're crazy, whatever it is, it's because they're uncomfortable. Be very cautious and be very careful and very selective of the environment, the people that you're hanging around with when you come back.
All right, man. If people want to check out more episodes of the podcast, where's the two best places to go?
Check out mailpodcast.com and youtubeformen.com.
And we don't usually do this at the end of the episodes, and I don't even know what your client load is like right now, but if somebody wanted to talk to you and they're listening to this and they're saying, hey, this makes sense, but I need some help with this. Is there any way that I can talk to you, Purdeep? Is there a way that people can reach out to you or get on your waiting list or anything like that?
Yeah, absolutely. You can reach out to me directly at team at purdeepsangha.com. Please email me and we can set up a quick call and just a conversation or a chat and see if it's a right fit for us to continue conversations.
Awesome. All right, man. Until next time, we will catch you later.
Till next time.